I first of all want to get your initial reaction to the strikes that have taken place within last night, Middle Eastern time. The White House has said that these strikes changes the course of history. Does direct US action strengthen Israel's regional hand or widen the battlefield to Gaza and beyond?
I'm going to presume you're speaking to me, Tom.
Yes,
Look,
I am.
Sorry.
Yes.
The reality of this attack, an illegal attack on a sovereign nation to buttress an illegal entity. I'm going to disagree with the Major General. Israel is an illegal entity. The way it exists today, it shouldn't be allowed to exist. No country should be allowed to exist when it exhibits apartheid tendencies and genocidal intentions. This country, Israel, has bombed 5 nations now in the past 2 years. The United States now in its 3rd interaction war in the Middle East in 20 years. It's an abomination. It's an abomination. What we've seen in Gaza in 20 months is a nuclear armed state with all of the capabilities of the entire West hasn't been able to defeat the resistance of the Palestinians there. How they can imagine that they can defeat 90 million plus Iranians with 4,000 years of history, 4,000 years of culture, that might bring about regime change. One thing needs to be clear: Israel is not a signatory to the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. It's not a member of the IAEA. It exists outside of all of the diplomatic norms that the rest of the world abides by. We know, as brown people, the Major General here as well, is that the hypocrisy of the West, of global rules-based order, of international law, of humanity, are predicated on the color of your skin. What we saw internationally with the condemnation of Russia as they invaded Ukraine, sanctions, military support, refugee escape pathways, etc., have all been absent to people of brown skin. This is an abomination, and sadly, no one's ever been able to bomb their way to peace. If there were movements within Iran against the regime, what they've done is in fact embolden the regime. How Iran reacts, whether to US military bases in Qatar, in the UAE, in Saudi Arabia, but also how China might react. Remember that Iran is part of China's strategic fuel supply. How China might react, what Russia might do. What we've seen here is, a megalomaniac, a genocidal war criminal in Benjamin Netanyahu, who is indicted by the International Court of Justice and Crime for crimes against humanity, has, in a desperate play to stay in power, has extended this war beyond the collar countries of occupied Palestine, of Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, etc., to now Iran. It's shameful that the world's allowed this to happen like this, and I call upon our government in Australia to go beyond merely mouthed excuses and platitudes. It's time for us to sanction this apartheid state. It's time for us to cease having relations or actions with this genocidal rogue nation.
In order to provide some balance here, Nasser, Iran frequently vocally calls the United States the Great Satan, which is a label coined by the Ayatollah Khomeini in 1979, and refers to Israel as the Little Satan. They've widely expressed criticism of both nations, strong criticism. Nasser, does the Americans not have the right to be concerned if a country that so openly calls for their demise develops a nuclear weapon?
Tom, have you been paying attention to the rest of the world? The only country that has been destroying countries all over the world, whether it is Afghanistan, 20 years, and they went to defeat the Taliban and ended up with the Taliban being in power. The balkanization of Iraq, of Libya, of Syria. The only countries with this sort of blood on their hand are America and Israel. Words, sir, words don't matter when you obliterate nations. When you are, remember, the United States is the only country to use a nuclear weapon, not once but twice. This is a country that have never apologized, never made good on what they did to Vietnam, what they did to Korea, did uranium in Fallujah, in Iraq, what's happened throughout the Middle East in their pursuit for worldwide hegemony. The words of a regime, however inflammatory they might be, pale into insignificance to the horrors, the West, the United States and its proxy, the apartheid genocidal state of Israel, have actually meted out.
Nassem, we have some breaking news coming in. Please stay with us. Iran's foreign ministry has urged international institutions not to remain silent, warning that failure to condemn blatant aggression exposes the world to unprecedented and pervasive danger. Tehran reaffirmed that the United States started a war against Iran during diplomatic talks and says it will resist with all its might against US military action. Nasser, can I get your thoughts on that? Obviously, we've seen mixed statements coming from around the globe in regards to this, mainly calls for de-escalation from foreign ministries around the world. However, we have the United Nations who are condemning the US strikes. What are your thoughts in the timing of this, and also calls by the Americans for diplomacy? Do you think that this will transpire, or do you think it's just going to lead to more violence in the region?
There's an inevitable increase in violence. What we need to understand that Israel exists the way it exists because of the impunity the West has conferred upon it. It can only exist as a military garrison state, and it can only exist that way by continuing to suppress the people who rightly claim that land, the Palestinians. Now, how that manifests itself as you extrapolate it beyond is what we've seen throughout the Middle East: the destruction of Syria, the destruction of Lebanon, of Libya, of Iraq, and now what's going to happen to Iran. Iran's not going to sit idly by and allow for this to happen. Should we go back to diplomacy? Absolutely, we must go back to diplomacy. We need to be speaking. Every child's life is precious. When we consider a brown child's life is as important as a white child's life, as in the Ukraine, then we might be able to get to a basis of equality and humanity and negotiation. But while Israel continues to pound Tehran from the air, I can't imagine that Tehran's going to stop. It's not going to stop. And how this escalates, what the United States does next. I mean, the Major General was talking about Tulsi Gabbard, and where the United States military analysts and their security services said that Iran isn't near weapons-grade plutonium, that we've got this shockingly racist, genocidal regime in Israel that is manufacturing consent. You know, Benjamin Netanyahu, for the best part of 3 decades, has said that Iran is 1 minute from a nuclear bomb. He's been wrong for 30 years, but he has been deliberately lying for 30 years. We are sleepwalking into World War III. God help us all. God help us all. I don't know what Iran's going to do and what America's reaction might be, but we are in unprecedented times. We are in unprecedented times, and I'm gravely worried for all of our humanity. Every child should be equally precious, regardless of their race, religion, color, where they were born, if they worship a God, and how they might worship a God. And this is sadly not where we are today.
Nasser Mashni, thank you very, very much for joining us on the program and for your insight. We have some more information coming in. The Israeli military says it's begun a fresh round of airstrikes targeting military positions in western Iran. We will keep you updated on that developing situation, but now let's